While I was at a comic convention, dressed in a male cosplay, my period unexpectedly arrived. A tall, handsome man in a firefighter uniform took off his jacket and tied it around my waist. Then he turned, leaned in close, and his masculine voice rumbled, "Kid, your hemorrhoids just burst." I couldn't believe it. That sensual, handsome face could utter words that felt like a slap. Amidst the bustling atmosphere of a grand comic convention, I was a cosplayer with a bit of a reputation. That day, I decided to embody a handsome, elegant male character, donning a pristine white suit and a meticulously styled wig. The moment I appeared, I became the center of attention. Cheers echoed through the hall. Ha, it's my husband. Mu Kai never disappoints us. Your husband cosplay is top tier. Can I get a photo? And a barrage of other excited praises. A massive army of fans swarmed me, taking turns for photos, creating a chaotic yet incredibly joyful scene. This lasted for nearly an hour, and only when my waist ached relentlessly could I finally breathe a sigh of relief, escaping the frenzied siege. I remembered Chloe's advice, my best friend who always insisted I had a tall build and masculine features, perfect for male characters. Indeed, the effect of this cosplay surpassed all expectations. My heart fluttered, and I immediately wanted to call Chloe to share this unexpected joy. But at that very moment, a familiar, uncomfortable sensation from my lower abdomen interrupted my thoughts. I froze, hesitatingly telling Chloe over the phone, "Something seems to be happening." Chloe worried, "What is it?" "Aunt Flo, the red goddess, is here." My period had arrived 5 days earlier than expected, an unforeseen mishap. Chloe was also silent. Why is my luck so bad? I quickly hung up, frantically searching for a savior around me. I asked everyone I could, but it was hopeless. No one had a sanitary pad to lend me. To make matters worse, in my panic, I accidentally asked a man cosplaying as a woman. His horrified gaze would surely haunt me forever. When a warm stream of liquid suddenly trickled down my leg, I completely froze, unable to move. In this moment of utter distress and shame, a figure suddenly appeared behind me. Could someone actually want a photo asterisk now? Was this person trying to kill me? I trembled as I turned around, and before me stood a tall, handsome man in a vibrant orange firefighter uniform. I couldn't help but be surprised by his unique costume choice. Why would anyone cosplay as a firefighter at a comic convention like this? I had to admit, his uniform looked incredibly realistic. He smiled, took off his outer jacket, gently bent down, and tied it around my waist. My face burned red. Just as I was about to thank him, the handsome man turned, leaned towards me, and his deep, masculine voice resonated. "Kid, your hemorrhoids just burst." A cold shiver ran down my spine. I choked, my face flushed crimson, gritting my teeth. I didn't even have a chance to explain before he cut me off. "Come on, I know you're embarrassed, no need to deny it, but it looks like your situation is pretty serious. Maybe you should go to the hospital to get it checked. They only burst like that if they're really big. How could you let them get so big without getting them removed, and now they've burst?" My face shifted from red to white, then back to burning red, completely speechless. Finally, I could only stammer, "You're a good person." The handsome man awkwardly scratched his head. "It's nothing, really." Fortunately, Chloe arrived just in time to rescue me from this predicament. She shoved a bag into my hand and pushed me towards the restroom. "Hurry, go take care of it." As I rushed into the restroom, I could still hear the handsome man asking Chloe, "Your boyfriend's hemorrhoids seem pretty severe. Is it okay not to go to the hospital? Burst hemorrhoids can be dangerous, you know." Chloe's unrestrained laughter echoed in my ears, making me wish the ground would swallow me whole. Great, from now on, she had valuable new material to tease me with for years to come. After resolving the incident and emerging from the restroom, only Chloe was waiting for me. She pointed at the jacket tied around my waist and said, "You're really calculating, bringing a jacket along for what?" I smirked. "It's not mine." Looking around, I didn't see the firefighter guy from earlier, and I couldn't help but be startled. "Where did he go?" Chloe burst out laughing. "You wouldn't believe it, a crowd swarmed him just now. They kept saying he was cosplaying a firefighter and vied to take pictures with him. Haha." I was stunned for a moment. "Then what?" Chloe laughed so hard her stomach hurt. "Then everyone was given a fire safety handbook, and he said, 'I've successfully completed my mission. Thank you all very much.' Then his captain called him away." It turned out he was a real firefighter. I took the fire safety handbook Chloe handed me and flipped through it. On the last page, I saw a photo introducing their fire brigade. I noticed the handsome guy almost immediately. He stood out completely among his firefighter colleagues. Not only was he the best looking on the team, but his smile was also arguably the silliest. I glanced at the name written below, Ethan Chin. A week later, I decided to go to the fire station, primarily to meet Ethan and return the jacket he'd lent me. The jacket really ought to be returned, right? As I was passing by a bridge, I suddenly saw a figure struggling in the river below. Without a moment's hesitation, I rushed to the edge of the bridge. "What's wrong?" A few people stood on the bank, their faces etched with extreme worry, frantically waving at me. But the distance was too great. I couldn't clearly hear what they were saying. The only thought in my mind was that if I hesitated for another second, the person in the water might not make it. Without another thought, I threw the things in my hands to the ground, quickly kicked off my shoes, and jumped into the river. Fortunately, I grew up near the coast. My swimming skills were excellent. After hitting the water, I quickly swam at full speed towards the man desperately trying to stay afloat. As I swam closer, preparing to grab his collar to pull him to shore, I realized he had completely stopped struggling. Instead, he was floating comfortably on the surface, looking at me with extreme astonishment. This man looked somewhat familiar. It turned out he was identical to the silly firefighter I'd met earlier. Of course, that wasn't the most important thing at the moment. The issue was whether he knew how to swim or not. If he did, then what was with all that struggling earlier? Just then, I heard shouts echoing from the shore. "Comrade, we're filming a drowning prevention propaganda video." Embarrassment. It was truly too embarrassing. So embarrassing that I just wanted to find a hole to crawl into. To try and regain some composure, I plunged underwater. But only a second later, a strong arm unexpectedly reached out and grabbed my neck. At the same time, I heard a very familiar voice in my ear. "Comrade, are you exhausted? Don't be afraid, I'll take you to shore." This kind-hearted friend was none other than Ethan Chin. I was completely helpless, allowing him to drag me to shore like a dead fish. Another firefighter quickly ran over, repeatedly explaining and profusely apologizing. I didn't say a word, just lay flat on the ground, eyes tightly closed, trying to figure out how to escape this situation as naturally and gracefully as possible. Why isn't she reacting? "Ethan, quickly give her CPR." Before I could even open my eyes, Ethan bent down, moving dangerously close to me. He was truly enthusiastic. I felt a sudden warmth on my lips and my eyes flew open in terror. Like a carp thrashing out of water, I bolted upright from the ground in a panic. Under the stunned gaze of everyone around, I tried to maintain a calm facade, bowing my head and waving my hands, saying I was fine. At that moment, I had only one thought: escape. Today I was wearing a white short-sleeved shirt, and after getting wet, it clung uncomfortably to my body. The bag containing Ethan's jacket was still there. I snatched it and ran off like a bat out of hell. After a few steps, I heard shouts echoing from behind. "Comrade, don't worry, someone will take you home. Ethan, hurry, is your car nearby? Take her home quickly." "No, really, it's not necessary." But when Ethan's car stopped right in front of me, I felt all my refusals become meaningless. Sitting in the car, Ethan carefully draped his jacket over the seat for me. "Your clothes are all wet, be careful not to catch a cold." I looked up at him and he responded with an awkward smile. He definitely didn't recognize me. It was understandable though. With the makeup, my face was completely different. Not recognizing me was normal. I clutched the bag tightly in my hand, hesitated for a moment, then decided I'd wait until our next meeting to return the jacket. Both previous encounters had been incredibly awkward. Never in my life had I felt such shame. At this moment, I suddenly felt a bit lucky that he hadn't recognized me. Ethan drove me all the way to the gate of my residential area. I mumbled my thanks, then quickly slammed the car door shut and ran off. Back home, I breathed a sigh of relief. My soaking wet shirt slipped to the floor. I looked at the shirt, then at the jacket in the bag, and suddenly felt a bit amused. Surely the next time Ethan met me, his wardrobe would be empty. I remembered what had just happened by the river. I immediately squatted down, clutching my head in despair. My first kiss was gone. Unexpectedly, I realized that Ethan and I truly had a destiny together. 3 days later, I received an invitation to cosplay at an event held at the mall. On the third floor, I unexpectedly ran into Ethan picking out clothes in a store. My intuition had been right. It turned out he really was asterisk out of clothes. There was still some time before the event started, so I decided to go over and greet him. Ethan saw me and immediately froze, then exclaimed in surprise, "It's you, kid." Today I was cosplaying a handsome male anime character in ancient style. I was a little surprised he still recognized me. "You remember me?" Ethan nodded. "Of course." He came closer and asked, "Have your hemorrhoids healed, kid? You're walking normally, so I guess you had them removed." I thought Chloe had clearly explained the situation to him, but it seemed things weren't that simple. Ethan continued, "Your girlfriend said you were too embarrassed to go to the hospital." "Great, Chloe, you did a wonderful job." So he still firmly believed I was a man. My mouth twitched. Just as I was about to explain everything, a sales assistant brought Ethan some clothes. "Here's your size, sir." Ethan took the clothes, looking at me with some hesitation. I quickly said, "Go try them on first." After he went into the fitting room, the event organizer approached me. They said, "Before the event starts, I need to review the procedure one more time." I asked the sales assistant to relay the message to Ethan and followed the organizer. The event was quite large-scale. Besides me, several other famous cosplayers were also attending. We coordinated with the organizers to carry out the activities in an orderly manner. Today was Saturday, so the mall was packed. Many people had gathered in front of the event area. After completing most of the preparations, nearly an hour had passed. I felt a bit tired, and beads of sweat dotted my forehead. Not long after, we reached the final part of the event, direct interaction with the audience. Staff members would spontaneously select a few lucky audience members to come onto the stage and play games with the cosplayers to liven up the atmosphere. The staff member responsible for selecting the audience was a young girl, also one of my fans. She leaned close to my ear and whispered, "Don't worry, Mukai, I'll bring a handsome guy up here for you." Before I could even react, she rushed downstairs. Following her direction, I saw Ethan standing nearby, his face curious as he looked at the stage. Ethan was pushed onto the stage. The entire hall fell silent for a moment, then immediately excited screams erupted ceaselessly. He stood beside me, looking embarrassed, and softly said, "What are you doing?" I smiled at him. "It's fine, don't worry, you just have to play a small game later." 3 seconds later, I looked at the props the organizers brought out and started to feel anxious. The host enthusiastically announced, "Next, our cosplayers will team up with lucky audience members to bite both ends of this long biscuit, then eat the biscuit together. The team with the shortest biscuit remaining will be the winner." The audience immediately became incredibly excited. My mouth twitched. What kind of ridiculous game was this? Why hadn't the organizers informed us beforehand? The atmosphere was too lively for us to refuse. I had no choice but to turn and look at Ethan. "You can refuse if you don't want to." He seemed calm and smiled at me. "It's okay, I can totally do it." The game began. I took a deep breath and bit one end of the biscuit. Ethan stood opposite, biting the other end and looking up at me. His eyes sparkled like stars. I didn't dare look him straight in the eyes anymore, awkwardly focusing only on the biscuit. The host yelled, "Start!" The biscuits of some teams quickly shortened at dizzying speed. The distance between Ethan and me narrowed more and more. It was so close I could feel his breath on my face. I felt the air around me thin and my heartbeat seemed to skip. When our noses were about to touch, I almost immediately bit off the biscuit, declaring the game over. But just 1 second later, Ethan raised his hand and cradled my head. In my horrified eyes, he quickly moved closer and tilted his head. His face rapidly magnified in my vision. My lips immediately felt a warmth. Boom. Fireworks exploded in my head. They burst continuously for a long time. Ethan held the last piece of biscuit he'd bitten and handed it to the referee. The outcome was predictable, of course, we won. "Wow," Ethan cheered, his voice full of joy. He laughed and said, "This is definitely the easiest game I've ever played." He moved closer to me with a radiant smile and gave me the winning prize. "Here, for you." I took the prize, looking straight at him but not saying a word. At that moment, I felt incredibly grateful that my makeup today was thick enough to at least hide my flushed face, a secret I didn't want anyone to discover. Luckily, we're both men, so there's nothing to be ashamed of. Ethan gently turned his head to the side, saying softly, "I saw the other teams were all male and female. Their remaining biscuits must be really long." He gestured with his finger to indicate length and smiled mischievously. Seeing him so happy, I felt a little unfair. Why was I the only one blushing? Why was I so embarrassed? I pressed my lips together, trying to suppress the surging emotions, and turned my head, leaning close to his ear. My voice was no longer affected by the thick cosplay makeup, but had returned to its natural pitch. "Who told you I was a man?" The smile on Ethan's lips faded. His neck stiffened, and he slowly turned to look at me. His mouth hung slightly open. "Ah!" 3 seconds of silence passed. Huh. It seemed Ethan needed more time to process the information and accept the truth that I was a girl. When I walked out of the mall, he was waiting for me right at the entrance. The moment he saw me, he quickly turned his face away, his earlobes flushed red, pointing straight towards me. Good, finally, I feel a little more comfortable. I took my phone out of my bag and handed it to him. Handsome, can I have your WeChat? Ethan turned to look at me, his eyes darting around, his face completely confused and awkward. After I subtly cleared my throat twice as a reminder, he finally reacted and quickly added me as a friend. After successfully friending him, I suddenly asked, "So, what do you do for a living?" I looked at him with a mischievous smile and continued, "How can you kiss me twice, but I'm not allowed to ask what you do?" Ethan suddenly looked up, his face astonished. "Twice." I replied casually, without a hint of shyness. "Yes, twice. Once today at the mall and once 3 days ago by Kingwu River. That's 2 times in total." Ethan stared at my face for a long time as if trying to search for something before suddenly realizing, "So, the girl who jumped into the river that day was also you?" I turned and smiled, admitting, let me introduce myself. My name is Mu Kai Hsu. I'm a cosplayer and also a media KOL." I held out my hand to shake his. Ethan was stunned for a moment, seemingly not yet fully recovered from his astonishment, before replying, "My name is Ethan Chin, I'm a firefighter." I clasped his hand, smiling, "Nice to meet you." Ethan glanced at my face, then quickly turned away again. He avoided my gaze. I guessed he must be recalling something. For example, the CPR scene by the river that day, or the unexpected biscuit-eating game that just happened. Otherwise, why would his face be so red? Ethan's phone rang a few times. He looked down at the screen, his expression suddenly serious. "Yes, I'll be right back. We'll contact her later, okay?" I nodded in agreement. Ethan breathed a sigh of relief as if a heavy burden had been lifted. In my eyes, he was acting as if I were a succubus about to devour him. Watching his back as he hurried towards the taxi, my heart fluttered a little, and I called out to him, "Ethan." He stopped, then turned around to look at me with disbelief. "I asked if you have a girlfriend." Ethan stammered in reply. No, I smirked and said, "Good, then go on. Your car's here." At this point, he fully snapped out of it and ran quickly towards the taxi parked by the road, his posture a bit clumsy and unnatural. That evening, when I recounted the entire story to Chloe, she burst into incessant laughter. "That firefighter must have been scared senseless by you. You're really good at this, pretending to like someone and making them overthink things." I shot Chloe a mock glare. "Who says I was pretending?" Chloe's laughter abruptly stopped. Ethan is handsome, kind, and his personality is honest." The word cute almost slipped out of my mouth, but at the last second I managed to change it to something else. "He's quite interesting." I turned to look at Chloe and asked, "What's so strange about me liking him?" Chloe blinked, confused. "Oh, really? I'm going to pursue him." Chloe stared at me, speechless. Finally, she gave me a thumbs up, her face full of admiration. "You're truly a beast." I was full of enthusiasm and determination, but Ethan seemed to give me no opportunity to show it. Every time I tried to find him, he was either on duty or en route to a mission. My path to love was far from smooth. That day, I went to the fire station to drop off clothes for Ethan and coincidentally saw him standing guard at the gate. I placed the bag at his feet and looked up at him. His earlobes were red again. I didn't intend to disturb him while he was on duty. I just sighed to myself, took out my phone, and opened our chat. I began typing, "You're on duty, so I'll leave your clothes at the station gate, okay? Let me tell you something strange. The firefighter standing guard here today looks exactly like you." His facial expression was truly peculiar, changing continuously. I tried to suppress my laughter and left the fire station. Lately, I had nothing to do but make videos and stay at home. Passing by the market, I suddenly wanted to buy some food. I called Chloe incidentally, "Come over for hot pot tonight. I'm going to buy some ingredients now." Chloe immediately agreed. I hung up and headed towards the market. Along the way, I passed mottled walls and some puddles on the ground. I hadn't gone far when I heard a child crying. It was midday, and no one else was in the area. I looked around. The crying grew clearer and seemed to come from above me. I unconsciously looked up. Seeing the scene before my eyes, I nearly died of fright. I saw a child about 3 or 4 years old dangling from a balcony's protective railing, hands tightly gripping the bars, his entire body outside. Oh my God, I tried to quickly calm myself. "Little one, hold on, I'll find a way to save you." I dialed 114 while shouting loudly towards the window. "Is anyone home? Is there an adult? Your child is hanging outside." I yelled for a long time, but no one answered. The child cried even louder. My heart was burning with anxiety, sweat trickling down my forehead. The child kept struggling, at risk of falling at any moment. "Little one, don't be afraid, the firefighters are coming soon, don't move." The more I spoke, the more the boy moved. I was so scared I didn't dare say anything else. Just then, the boy's body suddenly slipped as he struggled. Unconsciously, I reached out to catch him, but that balcony was at least 4 meters above the ground. If the boy fell? The boy got stuck again but continued to slide down. I was so anxious I just wanted to run around in circles. Right at that moment, a man carrying vegetables walked by from around the corner. In my eyes then, that uncle was like a savior. The uncle was so frightened he dropped all the vegetables he was holding. I found a large plastic bag by the roadside, and the uncle and I each held one end, stretching the bag out as much as possible underneath. The siren of the fire truck grew closer and closer. After hearing that familiar sound, more and more people ran over from all directions. Everyone was sweating with worry for the child. I faintly heard someone say, "The emergency exit in the residential area is blocked. The fire truck can't get in." Turning to look the other way, I saw a few figures in orange uniforms rushing towards us. The first one running was Ethan, whom I had met not long ago. We glanced at each other through the surrounding crowd, then quickly turned away as if embarrassed. After observing and analyzing the situation from below, they began to divide the rescue tasks. There was definitely no adult inside the apartment. Ethan climbed up from the balcony of the apartment below, reaching out to support the child's legs. His teammates finally managed to force open the apartment door upstairs, quickly climbed onto the balcony, sawed off the iron bars of the protective railing from above, and finally freed the child's stuck arm. Ethan from below tightly hugged the child, who clung to his neck, sobbing. Ethan gently patted the boy's back, whispered something, then carried him inside the house. Seeing the child safely rescued, the onlookers below all breathed a sigh of relief. Everyone clapped and cheered. I threw the plastic bag aside, my legs jelly, almost losing my balance. The uncle who had helped me earlier said, "You were really brave, little girl." I felt a bit embarrassed to be praised so much. A moment later, the child's mother rushed back from outside. An argument erupted right in front of the door. The paternal and maternal grandmothers took turns scolding their daughter-in-law for not looking after the child carefully. The mother blamed her irresponsible husband for leaving the child home alone. The father blamed his parents for not arriving sooner. In short, the whole group just blamed each other, the noise giving me a headache. As everyone crowded inside to comfort and scold each other, I quietly slipped away, alone, and walked silently towards the market. That night, after having hot pot with Chloe, I lay in bed, unable to sleep. My phone vibrated. I quickly grabbed it and was instantly wide awake. It was him. "Today I didn't intentionally trick you. I was preparing for a mission, but then there was a change, so I didn't go." "Ethan, what exactly are you implying? Is he explaining himself to me?" "Aha," he took the bait. I quickly typed out comforting words. "It's okay, it's really okay," feigning affection. "I saw you in the residential area today, you looked so handsome." My eyes sparkled like stars. I waited and waited, but there was no reply from his end. Instead, a small typing indicator kept flashing above, yet after a while no message was sent. I unconsciously bit my lower lip, frowning in deep thought. What exactly happened? Was I not enthusiastic enough, or did he feel I was bothering him? Just then, a brand new message unexpectedly popped up. "Mukai, I also thought you looked very beautiful today." I wondered how long he'd pondered and deliberated before deciding to send those 2 short sentences. The corners of my lips subtly curled, wanting to smile. Before I could compose myself, 2 more messages followed. "If you hadn't been able to save the little one today, and he had fallen into the plastic bag, you could have been seriously injured. Weren't you scared?" I thought for a moment, then replied honestly, "Why are you overthinking it so much? I only knew that if I didn't save him then, he would surely be badly hurt when he fell. I wasn't thinking much at all at that moment." The typing indicator appeared again. I held my breath, not sending any more messages for the next few minutes. While anxiously waiting, a call suddenly came through. After 3 long rings, I finally answered. A series of rustling noises came from the other end. And then I heard Ethan's deep, warm voice. "Hello." I chuckled playfully, teasing him. "What, you just said hello and that's it? Don't you have anything to say to me? You've been silent for 5 minutes. Ethan seemed a bit flustered, quickly explaining, "No, it's just that I don't usually talk to girls, so I don't know where to start." I suddenly didn't know how to respond. The other end also fell silent. After a long pause, I heard him cautiously ask, "Mukai, are you mad at me?" I burst into laughter, replying, "Why would I get angry so easily? I'm just giving you time to think and organize your words." Ethan, oh. At this point, I truly believed that he probably didn't often converse with girls. I could feel his awkwardness and anxiety through the phone screen. He then began to recount the day's events in detail. He said that the child was later taken to the hospital for a general checkup and unfortunately had no serious problems, only a few minor scratches. The child's parents, however, argued loudly, blaming each other, causing quite a bit of trouble. At the end of the conversation, I didn't forget to give him a sincere compliment. "Comrade Ethan, you were truly handsome today." Hearing a faint chuckle from the other end, after a few seconds of silence, Ethan finally spoke. "Thank you for calling me in time and encouraging that little boy." I smirked mischievously. "So, Comrade Ethan, what are you going to reward me with?" Ethan seemed a bit surprised. "What?" I quickly responded. "Tomorrow is the weekend. How about I treat you to a sumptuous dinner? Comrade Ethan, will you do me the honor?" "Ethan, I quickly cut him off. "Don't you dare make excuses to avoid it. I already asked your teammates today. You guys have tomorrow off." Ethan chuckled, his laughter lasting longer than usual. Then he replied, "I understand. Then I'll see you tomorrow, Mukai." After hanging up, I hugged my phone tightly to my chest, taking a deep breath. Why was tonight's hot pot so spicy? So spicy that my face was still burning. I couldn't believe I'd been stood up. After the waiter politely reminded me for the third time that the restaurant was closing soon, I finally had to reluctantly get up and leave my seat. Stepping out of the restaurant, I looked up at the gloomy sky. Unbeknownst to me, it had started to rain. Pedestrians rushed along the street. The night wind blew, carrying a biting chill that made my heart feel empty. Well, this was also the first time I had actively pursued someone, only to be so cruelly stood up. It truly felt terrible. The raindrops began to fall heavier. I gently closed my eyes. At this moment, I suddenly felt a deep empathy for the heartbroken heroines in those painful youth romance novels. I turned, intending to cross the street, when a motorcycle unexpectedly roared out from a hidden corner not far away, speeding towards me. Caught off guard, I froze. Immediately after, I heard hurried footsteps chasing behind me. "Careful!" Ethan grabbed my wrist, pulling me back from the roadside. I looked at him in a daze, feeling a warm touch on my wrist, and I looked down at his hand. Ethan quickly let go of my hand, saying apologetically, "I'm so sorry, I was too hasty. Are you okay?" I shook my head, reassuring him, "I'm fine." Under the dim streetlights, Ethan seemed a little awkward. His clothes were half-soaked, his sideburns stuck to his forehead, his face dotted with raindrops. I quickly took tissues from my bag and offered them to him. Ethan took the tissues, wiped his face cursorily, then looked up at me, his voice full of remorse. "I'm sorry I'm late." I smiled faintly, trying to keep my voice calm. "It's okay." I glanced at my watch, casually saying, "Only 2 hours late." Ethan continued to apologize. I tried my best to suppress the smile threatening to break out at the corners of my mouth and asked seriously, "So how do you plan to compensate me?" Ethan scratched his head, looking bewildered. "What do you want?" "Anything," he hesitated, "only if it's within my ability." I leaned slightly forward, quickly closing the distance between us. Ethan stood rooted to the spot, his eyes fixed on me. "Then, I want you." At that very moment, I noticed his pupils contract slightly, his entire face quickly flushing red. This man truly didn't know how to hide his emotions. I tried to suppress the laughter bubbling up inside me, slowly saying, "I want you to treat me to a meal." Ethan seemed a bit stunned. "What?" I gave a soft HMPH and turned to walk towards the other side of the road. "I waited for you for 2 hours with nothing in my stomach. I'm practically starving to death here. There's a really good late-night eatery on the next street. Let's go have a late dinner." With that, I walked ahead. After only a few steps, I heard hurried footsteps following behind me. Ethan quietly followed me, protecting me the entire way. I felt Ethan was a bit strange. It was early summer, and the restaurant hadn't turned on the air conditioning yet. He put too much chili in his food, sweating profusely as he sat opposite me, yet he stubbornly refused to take off his outer jacket. I swear, I had no overly suggestive thoughts. The main reason was that his face truly looked miserable. Putting that aside, it was indeed a rather delicious meal, and the atmosphere was very pleasant. Although Ethan seemed a bit naive, the stories he told were inexplicably interesting. He always made me laugh. When I left the restaurant, there weren't many people left on the street. Ethan was also much more relaxed than he had been initially. The eatery wasn't far from my house, only about 10 minutes walk. Ethan offered to walk me home, so we considered it an after-dinner stroll. The rain had stopped long ago, the road surface was still soaked, and even the air felt damper. The atmosphere seemed harmonious, but contained an ineffable emotion that was difficult to put into words. Ethan walked me all the way to my door. He watched me go upstairs before turning to leave. I slowly climbed the stairs, step by step, standing on the second floor, watching his lonely, retreating figure. I don't know if it was my imagination, but I felt there was something off about his gait. "Granddaughter, is that your boyfriend?" A woman's voice suddenly echoed in the dimly lit stairwell. I was startled, turning around quickly. It turned out to be Mrs. Lee from the same building. She walked closer to me, pointing towards Ethan's retreating figure through the second-floor window. "That young man is a kind person. He saved a mother and child today." I was stunned for a moment. "Today?" Mrs. Lee became excited, eager to share with me what she had witnessed on the street tonight. A drunk man was wielding a knife, attacking pedestrians, and at that moment he targeted those to a mother and her baby. The baby, barely over a year old, was crying so desperately it sounded like its breath would give out. That young man was the first to rush in and stop the attacker. There were many people standing around, but he was the only one brave enough to charge forward. I don't know if he got hurt. Mrs. Lee continued to recount the incident volubly, but my ears completely tuned her out. All I could think of was her sentence, "I don't know if he got hurt." The moment I reacted, I rushed downstairs to chase after Ethan. Ethan wasn't walking very fast, so it wasn't long before I caught up to him. "Ethan?" He looked back at me in surprise. I stopped dead in front of him and suddenly reached out, grabbing his arm and pulling up his sleeve. What met my eyes was a very prominent injury. I took Ethan to the hospital close to midnight. He obediently followed me, going through the procedures to buy medicine, dress his wound, and even had to get an IV because of a slight fever. Ethan looked up at the dripping IV bag hanging above his head, then looked at me standing beside him with an impassive expression. He subtly tugged at my shirt with his other hand. "Mukai, why aren't you saying anything?" I angrily shot back. "What am I supposed to say?" "I also want to ask you, with such a serious injury, why didn't you go to the hospital first?" Ethan lowered his head. "At that moment, I just thought it was late, and I didn't want to keep you waiting, so I tried to get to you as quickly as possible." My heart softened after hearing those words, and my voice became gentler. "So, all those injuries on you were caused by that drunk guy?" Ethan seemed surprised, then he awkwardly scratched his nose. "Not entirely, actually." He began to explain, truthfully, dealing with a drunk like that didn't take any effort for me at all. The problem was, after everything was over, everyone around kept coming to thank and praise me, which made me a bit overly joyful and excited. So, I wasn't paying attention to the road and carelessly fell into a sewer. Who would have thought the manhole cover was missing? A moment of silence enveloped us. I stared intently at his facial expression, trying to holding back several times, but in the end, I couldn't help but softly utter, "Idiot!" Although our first date wasn't very smooth, the relationship between Ethan and me had undergone a qualitative change. From then on, every day I would send him good morning and good night messages. Whenever I shared small, interesting things in my life, he would respond very quickly. He also gradually opened up, telling me memories and stories from his time in the fire brigade. Our relationship grew closer and more intimate through our phone screens. It seemed as if only a thin veil remained before we would officially become a couple. This situation lasted until autumn. That day, a university classmate, Alex, came to visit the city. As a local, I invited him out for a meal. In the restaurant, since we hadn't seen each other in a long time, we chatted very happily. We were deep in conversation when suddenly, the fire alarm blared, and immediately after, several tall firefighters walked in. Ethan instinctively glanced at me, then at the man sitting opposite me. After 3 seconds, he quickly turned his face away, looking in another direction. "It's fine, it's just a routine fire safety inspection," he told the manager who had rushed over breathlessly. "Where's the kitchen?" For some reason, I felt a hint of anger, a slight irritation in his voice. Afterward, he and his teammates followed the manager into the kitchen to conduct the inspection. By this time, I was almost done eating, so I got up to use the restroom. When Ethan came out of the kitchen, he unconsciously glanced towards the table by the window where my friend and I had been sitting, but he only saw my friend sitting there alone. That person was talking on the phone with someone in a very urgent, hurried tone. "She's still single. I think I still have a chance. I plan to stay here for a few more days." Ethan's eyes flashed slightly. He stared in that direction, completely unmoving. "Ethan, what are you doing standing here?" One of his teammates walked over and patted him on the shoulder. Ethan finally snapped back to reality and hurriedly followed them outside. After finishing dinner with my classmate, we went to see a movie. On the way home, I received a message from Ethan. "Are you home yet?" I answered truthfully. "Not yet." After a moment of silence, my phone rang. "Hello, where are you?" I glanced at the buildings around me. "I'm at Gun Lake." "Ethan, wait for me, I'm coming to you." After hanging up, I stood there stunned for a long time. Looking at the switched-off phone screen, I reconfirmed my thoughts. Ethan seemed rather unhappy today. Not long after, I saw a figure rushing towards me. Ethan, panting, stopped right in front of me. "Mukai, I have something to tell you." I nodded. "Go ahead." He looked up at me, his eyes sparkling like stars, but he seemed to struggle to speak. I teased him. "Whatever you have to say, just say it. I'll be very happy no matter what you say. Of course, if you say you like me, I'll be even happier." Before I could finish, I heard his voice. "Mukai, I like you." After returning home and taking a shower, I lay sprawled on my bed, hand on my chest, but my heart still felt like it was beating too fast, too hard. The moment I closed my eyes, Ethan's serious face when he confessed appeared in my mind. Gun Lake tonight, the night joggers by the lakeside, the gentle night breeze. All those details made me feel incredibly stirred and nostalgic. I murmured to myself, "It's really, really too dangerous." My phone and hand started vibrating. It was Sophia calling. "Mukai, shall we go camping in Namthan tomorrow?" I can't go tomorrow." Sophia was surprised. "When I asked you before, you said you had nothing to do these days." I couldn't help but smile, because a few days ago I didn't have a boyfriend. The other end of the line was silent for a very long time, then a strange sound, a completely different voice cried out. "What? That fast?" I thought for a moment and said, "Not exactly fast. After all, I've known him for almost half a year now. I guess it was bound to reach this stage eventually. It's pretty normal." Other side was silent. Sophia then yelled angrily, "You despicable traitor, beep, beep, beep." Hearing the busy signal, I rolled over and buried my face in my blanket, finally unable to hold back my laughter. On the day my university classmate Alex got married, I went to his wedding reception. After the wedding, as he walked me out of the restaurant, his face was slightly red from too much alcohol. He patted my shoulder and said, "Mukai, thanks to you, Mia and I could be together." He hadn't even finished his sentence when a hand grabbed his wrist and pulled it away from my shoulder. Ethan stood beside me, smiling. I quickly introduced, "This is my boyfriend. He came to pick me up." Alex looked at him in surprise, then nodded a greeting. Alex turned back to me. "At that time, I came to find you and learned that Mia didn't have a boyfriend yet. You encouraged me to bravely pursue my love, so I gathered all my courage to confess to her. Mukai, you're my matchmaker." He said excitedly, and I just smiled, congratulating him, completely oblivious to someone else's complex expression. On the way back with Ethan, he finally couldn't help but turn and ask me, "Didn't your university classmate like you?" I was confused by his question. "No, he likes my university roommate." Ethan looked stunned, his ears turning red, gripping my hand tightly without saying anything more. I thought for a moment and suddenly felt like my mind had been enlightened. I walked faster and wrapped my arms around him. "Ethan, you're misunderstanding something, aren't you?" Ethan pressed his lips together. "No, I'm not." "I don't believe you. You thought he liked me, so that's why you confessed to me at Gun Lake?" Ethan said, "No. I chased after you." "Ethan, you were jealous then, weren't you?" He tried to deny it, but I stopped, pushed him against the wall, and placed my hands on either side of him. I stood on tiptoes and kissed his cheek. "Were you jealous?" Ethan looked down at me with deep eyes. I was about to step back when he wrapped his arms around my waist and leaned down. The distance between our lips disappeared. I heard him reply in a deep, charming voice, "That's right. I was jealous. Yeah."